The Umpire Inspire podcast is all about the stories, all about the journeys, and all about the heart of being an umpire. I'm your host, Jason Becker. Greetings, umpire friends. Jason here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Umpire Inspire podcast, episode number 5. A very special episode, an episode that I have been very, very excited to bring to you. A couple months ago, I sent out an email on a Friday night. It was addressed to 8 or 9 of my friends. It was an invitation to be guests on an all-new podcast, the Umpire Inspire podcast. I let them know what was going on, what my ideas were. I let them know that the website was live and that they should check it out and let me know if they would like to participate. So I sent that email, probably 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. Before I went to bed that night, 2 or 3 of my friends had responded and said, yes, I'm all in. This sounds great. Let's do it, which made me very excited, as you can imagine. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning and I had a couple more emails waiting for me. And the last one I read said very simply, Jason, I heard about the show from a friend of mine who told me about it. I think your idea is great. If you're looking for guests to be on the show, I would be very happy to help. And it was signed by the gentleman that you're going to hear in this episode coming up. A gentleman who started his big league career in 1986 and worked for more than 30 years in the bigs. All-Star games in 1993, 2001, and 2011. Dozens and dozens of Division and Championship Series games and World Series assignments in 1998, 2001, and 2004. He was a part of some pretty historic World Series. Altogether, he worked nearly 4,000 games in the major leagues before his retirement in 2017. And of course, this gentleman's name is Mr. Dale Scott. What a thrill and a privilege for me to visit with Dale and to bring you our conversation today. I really enjoyed myself. We had a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of stuff. So much stuff, in fact, that we have split the podcast into 2 parts. So today you're going to hear part 1 of my conversation with Dale. We give a recap of Dale's journey to the big leagues. We talk about handling situations on the field. We talk about body language. We talk about mental toughness and the mental resilience that it takes to succeed and how he recovered and learned to recover from incidents on the field. And we really get deep into the weeds. You'll hear us talk about exactly where to put your arms and how to hold your hands during a conversation on the field. Pretty detailed stuff. It just sort of happened, and I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. So do please enjoy part 1 of my visit with number 5, Dale Scott. Dale, welcome to the show.
I am very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy you're here, man. It is a great opportunity for me. I want to thank you straight off the bat for taking the time, for making the contact to make this happen. And you can imagine for an amateur umpire like me that it's a unique opportunity, quite a thrill to talk with someone like you and to visit with someone like you. So I've got a ton of questions. You've answered them all 1,000 times, I'm sure, but we'll try to get through as many as we can here and let the listeners hear from you all the experiences and the lessons you learned from 30 plus years in the bigs.
That sounds like a heck of a deal, Jason. Let's go.
I appreciate it. So let's start back in it's the mid 1980s, Dale. You are working your way up through the minors. You are knocking on the door of the bigs. Tell me a little bit about your journey at that time. Who or what were the most important factors in getting you to the bigs or in helping you succeed enough to stick?
Well, starting off, somebody that really helped me a lot early in the lower minor leagues as I was getting going was Dick Nelson. Dick Nelson was a supervisor with the minor leagues. And back then, I came went to umpire school in 81 and started that year. They only had Barney Deary at the office of St. Petersburg, and then they had Mike Fitzpatrick on the basically the east side of the Mississippi and Dick Nelson on the west side. And so Dick had a lot of ground to cover to see every
Boy,
double
no
A
kidding.
and A ball. I mean, it was amazing the amount of miles he would put on his car every year. But he would basically, and how he did it, I'm not sure. But and of course, I started off in short A at the Northwest League, so only worked from mid June to Labor Day. But he would work the schedule so he could traverse around the West and see everybody twice during the season. And so he was a big influence for me and helped me a lot when I, was first getting started. I was very fortunate. I moved up pretty quickly in the minor leagues. And, like you said, I was knocking on the door. I got promoted to AAA in May of '84. Spent the rest of the year there. I went to the Dominican Republic, worked another full season of AAA in '85. Had my first big league game in August of '85, and then worked another Dominican Republic, and in '86 went to spring training. Thinking I was going to get, I was like basically fourth on the depth chart, so to speak. And,
Okay.
And I just thought maybe with two openings, I'll move up a couple spots. I'll get a lot of games that year, and everything will work out. Well, as it turned out, they hired myself and Tim Cheetah. So how that all came about, Dick Nelson helped me a lot there, and then I had some really good partners in the minor leagues. Tim Cheetah was one of them in the Cal League and also Instruction League. I've had a couple guys that maybe didn't make it to the big leagues, but they were good, solid partners to work with, and constructive criticism to help me improve. And those are the things that, and then just determination and passion for the game, and just every day go out there and try to work as hard as you can. And that I was lucky. I moved up and things worked out well for me.
Those lessons came from Dick early on in short A, you said?
Yeah, well, they started off right at the beginning in June of '81. He saw us in Walla Walla, our second series of the season.
Okay.
And
one of his two visits to you that year.
Exactly. and it was my second plate job in professional baseball.
Oh my gosh!
And as it turns out, I had a plate with the bases loaded, a force play. The throw took the catcher off a little bit. I throw beat him, but I had him off the plate, called him safe, and he immediately charged me, bumped me several times. I ejected him. He went crazy.
Wow.
And anyway, so after the game, I'm thinking of all the games that Dick's going to be here.
Yeah, how about that?
In my second plate job ever. But actually, as I found out as going on, Dick and all the supervisors, not that they wanted to see you in trouble, but they wanted to see if you did get in trouble, how you dealt with it. And if it was just a basic game with ball strike, safe out, he could see your plate work and your base work and your foot movement and your mechanics and all that stuff. But they really can see a lot on how someone handles a situation and the aftermath of that situation. How does it affect him that half inning, the next inning, the rest of the game, that type of thing.
So in the moment, you were thinking to yourself, oh, brother, not today. But in hindsight, maybe that was a blessing in disguise, right? That occurred and that he got to see you handle that situation.
That's exactly right. And it was a volatile situation. The catcher's the one that bumped me all over the place. Actually, the manager was getting the feeling of the catcher. He wasn't. He knew I got it right. This catcher just went goofy. But the thing is that Dick witnessed not only how I handled that situation, but also how did it affect me, or didn't it affect me as I went on calling pitches the rest of the game. And I don't remember what inning that was in. But the point is, that's what really shows them. You come out of umpire school, most everybody that gets to that position in the minor leagues, you've got pretty good mechanics. You've got a knowledge of the two-man system. You've got rules of knowledge. You have pretty good judgment. You wouldn't make it that far at that point. So they want to see, what a lot of times will make or break or be the difference between a guy moving up and a guy not, is how, situation handling and field presence and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it was a blessing.
So I'm just going to skip ahead about 15 questions right now because this is a great learning opportunity. So whether it's that incident or any of the, I'm sure, many incidents of a similar nature that you had up in the bigs, what are the actual things that you are doing in your head, in your body language, with your words to get back into the game? What were your strategies when you ran across something like that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, as far as body language stuff, you always want to show, and of course, perception is reality. You always want to show confidence. You always want to show that you are. You don't want to, hang your head or droop your shoulders like you made a mistake,
Okay.
even though you may know that you missed the call, but you don't want to portray that with your body language. It's it's like a shark in the water. When they see that, man, they're gonna jump on you. But I tell people when I do clinics or talks or whatever, is that we have to have a really short memory as umpires and sports officials in general. You just have to. You can't dwell on stuff. I will deal with whatever mistakes I made, whatever calls I missed, whatever, after the fact. That when I could talk to my partner, if I have video, I can look at that and try to figure out why I made those mistakes. On the field, frankly, isn't that time. I mean, I always tell people at these talks, I said, if you have the bases loaded, one out, and a ground ball right to the shortstop, beautiful double play ball, they're out of the inning, whoops, it goes through his legs. Now, he can't sit there and dwell about how he made a mistake there, because he's going to have the next ground ball coming to him, and the next one after that. And so it's the same thing as an umpire. And maybe it's not even an argument. I miss a 2-2 pitch. I should have called the guy out on strikes. Okay, that's on me. But guess what? I got another pitch coming. And instead of dwelling on something that just happened, that I can I'll deal with that later. But I've got another pitch coming, and I have to make sure that first miss doesn't cause me to miss a second one. And so it's that kind of mentality that you have to have.
Yeah, it's a mental toughness, right?
Absolutely.
It's a mental resilience. And did you have that in you from the very beginning, or was that something that improved over time?
Oh, I mean, I think, there's a little bit in there as far as your focus and whatever that, but no, you learn how to really block things out and just focus and concentrate on, and some days you're better at it than others. I learned that a lot when I was in the Dominican, how to really, turn it on when it's time to turn it on. And the reason I say that is because in the Dominican, oftentimes we, what I would call a Dominican day, our plumbing was out, or our electricity was out, or
okay.
or I've got some things I've eaten aren't agreeing with me or whatever. But whatever's happening, once you walk on the field, you got to turn that light on, because no one cares. Nobody cares what kind of day you had. Nobody cares how you feel. You don't miss a play and they come out to argue and you say, our electricity is out today. And so,
it's not going to help.
And it's not going to help. It's probably going to make it worse. And the thing is, that really helped me mentally as I transitioned into the big leagues right after that, my flight was late, or the hotel screwed up my reservation, or my bags were missing, or I just didn't get any sleep and my nap didn't happen, or whatever. But guess what? I walk onto the field. No one cares. You've got to do the job. You got to take all that out and just focus on what's ahead of you. And it's the same thing with what we were talking about as far as a situation or a missed call, or even it's not a missed call, but a situation, how you deal with that and do what you got to do. But now, boom, it's time to go on. Let's go. And that's all mental.
So mental toughness, mental resilience. What are some other habits that made you successful on a big league field? What are some of the attitudes that you brought onto the field with you that you think helped contribute to your success? Well,
easier said than done sometimes, but just not to get frustrated. Sometimes you get frustrated because they're just not being very fair. You're getting pitches right and they're just, everybody's screaming or whatever, or you get frustrated because you got yourself in great position, and then the base runner did something stupid, and now you got to adjust. Maybe anything that might frustrate you. But the thing is that, again, you can't umpire and officiate very well when you're frustrated. And again, it's part of that whole thing, Jason, of trying to block out all the stuff that either is out of your control, or it certainly isn't something that needs to be dealt with at this point, and just, again, focus on the task at hand, the pitch coming in, the play, the situation that's happening. And obviously baseball umpiring is physical. You're up and down on the plate. It could be hot. It could be, you're running around. If it's a two-man system, you're doing a lot more running, whatever the situation is. But really, this game is mental. It is mentally checking in and staying in until it's over. And sometimes that can be quote unquote easier on the plate because you're involved with every pitch. And maybe not quite as easy if you're working a three-man or something at third base because you're thinking, I got people used to say when
danger zone right there.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
They say, oh, you've got third base, you got a night off. No, I don't. No, I really don't. I mean, I may not have a play, and that's great. But guess what? If I do, it's that check swing in the ninth inning that's really important, or it's that catch no catch, or that fair foul, or that play at third, and you better get it right. Because that's your only play, So you have to stay focused and mentally engaged from the first pitch until you walk off that field.
And man, isn't it crazy that you're not talking about big league umpire skills right now? You're talking about high school umpires. You're talking about little league umpires. You're talking about youth travel ball. It's all the same type of skill set that's got to get us through.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. And it's one of those things that again, perception is reality. First of all, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what level you're working. You try to be the best you absolutely can be at whatever game you're working. If you don't have that thought process, maybe you should be thinking about why you're working it then, or why you're doing it.
Right.
But the other thing is that not only blocking things out and that kind of stuff, but I said earlier, don't make it look like that perception that you don't want to be there, because the fact of the matter is you may not want to be there, but you don't portray that to the coaches and the players and the fans and everybody else. Even though you've had a tough day, or even though the game's running long and you have dinner plans or whatever the situation is, that's not part of the job description. The job description is, you're working this game, and until this game is over, you're working it 100%. And then you can deal with whatever other situations are going on after that. But the fact is, you've got to look the part, and you've got to, even though internally you might be second guessing yourself, internally you're mad at yourself for missing a play, internally you're a little bit ticked off at your partner because he didn't rotate, whatever the situation is, we can deal with that later. You can't show that and have your head down, your shoulders down, or acting like you just don't want to be there, because again, it's like blood in the water. The sharks are coming, and they will be all over you.
What percentage of that is body language, and what percentage of it is hustle on the field to overcome that gnarly situation that just happened? Is it 50-50?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing about hustle is you should always hustle. I mean, it's not a. I mean, some plays require more hustle than others, obviously, or maybe if whatever the situation is. But you should always have the mindset, you're going to hustle all the time. I always used to tell myself, and I officiated basketball and football also, and I would always get upset at myself if I missed something because of me, because I didn't hustle. Because I kind of big leagued it, or whatever you don't want to call it, and that to me is one of the worst things you could do as an official, because it's letting yourself down. It makes you look bad, and it's just not right, and so, but yeah, you want to hustle all the time. But again, when I've absolutely missed a play, and I've had, this is before replay and all that stuff. And I know I missed the play, and we don't have crew consultations, and I'm getting flack from everybody, and I had an argument, and maybe I ejected, maybe I didn't, whatever, it doesn't matter. And now everybody's gone, and we're about ready to get going again, and the fans are relentless. I can't sit out there and show them that it's affecting me, or that I'm mad at myself, or that I'm disappointed, or whatever. I have to show that confidence. Here's the next pitch, let's go. And that's what you want to portray.
In the big leagues, Dale, what kind of feedback do you get specifically relating to body language? By that time, is that quite as much of a consideration as it was coming up through the minors or as an amateur umpire?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. My first year in the big leagues, and I only had one game in '85 and then I was hired in '86. So I went to the big leagues with one game under my belt.
Nice.
So I was learning, which is very, very nice. But I didn't have the luxury of going up and down and getting some of that big league flavor, and then getting back down, and kind of working into it. And so I was learning to umpire in the big leagues in real time, which everyone going up has, but usually you're getting a few games here, then you're down, and you can take a breath, and now you're getting a few games, and I just think that I'm not complaining. That's just the way it was.
Right.
But the one of the things that I did in an argument is I had a tendency to put my hands out when I'm saying, like, no, he missed the tag, he never tagged him, or something like that. But what it looks like to people in the stands is, I don't care what he is. It doesn't matter to me. I called him safe. Get over it. I mean, it looked like.
Okay, describe that a little more. So your hands are out to your side, like they're kind of like palms up kind of situation, or.
Exactly, palms up, about
okay.
just under your shoulder as you're talking, kind of just. And I had a tendency to do that.
It looks argumentative. It could be interpreted as argumentative or complacent.
Correct. And this was more in the vein that not so much argumentative, or at least Dick Butler, who was the American League supervisor, that head American League supervisor, is the one that pointed this out to me. And I had no idea. I mean, I didn't even know I was doing this, right? And the reason you had asked the question, I said, well, in the big leagues, it's actually even more. It's because I'm on camera all the time now.
Yeah.
So, if I did this in AAA, well, even AAA now, these guys are on TV a lot now, like not when we were there. But anyway, in the minor leagues, you're not going to be on camera nearly as much, obviously. And so I would be doing that, and it just really wasn't something that was addressed to me or pointed out to me. Well, I get to the big leagues, and now it literally. And when I saw, what was so funny is Dick Butler had pointed this out. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, that seems like a nitpicky thing. And that very next day, this was at night after a game that I had an argument. That very next day, there was a picture in the local newspaper of me in this argument with my arms out. It looked like I was saying, I don't care.
Yeah.
And it pointed out perfectly what he was telling me. And right when I looked at it, I said, oh yeah, okay,
point driven home. I got you.
Yeah. So again, body language is important. A lot of guys know that, through the last many years of my career in the big leagues, when I had an argument, I would have one hand up over my mouth. For one reason that kept me from, throwing, I'm not even Italian, and it kept me from throwing my arms up and around and everything. But the other thing is that I was once burned by a camera on me when I said something I probably should not have said. And it doesn't take a genius to read lips of what I said. And so that told me, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. So, I would put my hand over my mouth when I was talking to players or managers, because I just don't want anything to be misinterpreted. And that kind of stuff. But again, it's all body language. Not only do you want to look the part and look like you want to be there and you're hustling, all that stuff, but you don't want to look in an argument like you are, like you said, complacent, argumentative, too aggressive. Now, I've done all those. Don't get me wrong, but in a perfect sense, that's the types of things you don't want to portray as an umpire.
This topic is something that you probably want to think about and practice before it happens. You probably want to spend just a few minutes thinking, okay, when I'm going to have a conversation with a coach, what am I going to do with my hands? What am I going to do with my arms? And maybe have a look at it. So when I was encouraged to have a look at this a few years ago, you look at yourself with your arms crossed in front of you. Okay, I don't like that. You look at yourself with your arms on your hips, your hands on your hips. Okay, that sure doesn't look good. That looks like I'm mad. You went through the experience of having your hands out to the side, and you understood, okay, wow, that's probably not what I want to be portraying right here. So I guess I'm saying all this as an encouragement to the younger or the amateur umpires listening. If you haven't gone through this exercise for yourself already, it might be worth your time before it happens on the field, on the fly, and you find yourself wishing you would have handled the body language thing just a little bit differently. You can get ahead of that before it happens.
Exactly. One of the places that before I was putting my hand over my mouth because I had cameras everywhere, is I would put my hands in my back pockets.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
way I wasn't flailing around. With your arms crossed on your chest, you look defensive, or
Yes.
you look, it's not a good look. Hands on hips can be misconstrued, although I'd rather have that than crossed, on your chest. But one of the ways that I found for me, and that looked, kind of neutral, didn't look aggressive, didn't look like I didn't care or whatever, was just my hands, in my back pockets. Now, when you have the plate, you got a mask in one hand. So that's not maybe necessarily what you're doing, but again, you're absolutely right. Be aware of how do I look? What am I looking like? Go in a mirror, just like guys will, work on their out calls or their strike calls, and that's all good. But also just take a look at if someone is arguing with you, how different quote unquote poses you have, and how they look to somebody sitting in the stands that isn't necessarily hearing what's being said, but they see what they see, and it looks, a lot of times it'll not portray what you're trying to portray. Those are things that those are forced or unforced errors that you don't need to make.
Unforced errors. That's a great way to put it. I was just about to try to describe that we are fighting some battles on the field that nobody but umpires know about. And that's trying to get ahead of these issues and trying to overcome the predispositions or stereotypes or assumptions that people make about what we're doing out there. But man, if it's not hard enough just to make the right call on the field, we've also got a handful of other things that we've got to be contending with every single game at no matter what level too.
One of the stories that I say is if you're you want to look the part, and again, an unforced error is when you look sloppy coming on because they don't even know who you are. All of a sudden, they've already got a negative thought about you.
Yeah.
And I always tell people if you're sitting on a United Airlines flight and in walks the pilot, and it's the best pilot that United Airlines has. I mean, he's their greatest pilot, but he's in cutoffs and a wife beater. I'm probably going to get off the plane, right?
Yeah, that's right.
he's not looking the part. So you don't want to give them that ammo before you even start off.
Yeah.
And that's why all of this is important from the moment you get in that parking lot, and the moment that you're taking putting your shin guards on at the car in the parking lot. People see you. You have to know at that point you're working now, and show it, and show that good body language.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my conversation with Dale. Just can't thank him enough for his generosity in visiting with me. I just had so much fun, and it was such an opportunity. And that's what makes being an umpire so special, right? So much of what we just discussed aren't just major league skills. They're college skills, they're high school skills, little league, baseball, and softball skills. See, this is what gets me so excited. A 30-year major league veteran and a little league umpire like me and a listener like you can all connect and talk about our craft and learn from one another and even teach one another. One of many reasons why it's great to be an umpire. Okay, so in part 2 of my conversation with Dale, which will come your way next week, we talk, among other things, about what surprised Dale during his first couple years in the major leagues. We talk about his style as a crew chief and his philosophy and goals for the guys on his crew. I ask him about his plate stance, which I find very interesting, and it's a pretty good story how that developed for him. And I've got some questions that you, the listeners, submitted, and we have a lot of fun with those. So thank you so much again for listening today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Dale as much as I enjoyed talking with him. Please share the show with your umpire friends who you think might enjoy listening, and check out previous episodes at umpireinspire.com or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Take very good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week for Dale Scott Part 2 on the Umpire Inspire podcast.